investing in securities, with no mention of his own very personal loss that day. My Uncle A.G. Gaston was the real thing if you wanted to use words like legend or icon. Beginning with the question, what do our people need now? Uncle Arthur, as we called him, developed over the course of his nearly 80-year career an amazingly accurate business philosophy that allowed him to create and grow numerous service-based companies for the black community in Birmingham, Alabama. By 1992, Black Enterprise, the magazine devoted to tracking the progress of African American businesses and their creators, had designated A.G. Gaston the entrepreneur of the century. I doubt there were many entrepreneurs, white or black, who could rival the span, 73 years, or the expanse, banking, insurance, motel, restaurant, real estate, construction, funeral homes and cemeteries, radio stations, senior housing, and a business college of his empire. For many years, A.G. Gaston was referred to casually as the richest black man in America. We, his family, never knew if that was actually true, but we did know for certain that he was very good at what he did, and that he went to work every day of his life until the day he died. At his death, news accounts would put the combined worth of his companies as high as $140 million. None of us really understood, as our uncle's life and legend were unfolding, how accurately his story reflected a century of hopes on the part of African Americans, initiated by the promise of the Civil War, trampled by the failures of the Reconstruction era, to finally become possible 100 years later. The sweep of his life was nothing other than majestic. From grandparents who were former slaves, to the civil rights riots on the street just outside his office window, A.G. Gaston had seen it all. Not only had he seen it, but he had done it, and in unparalleled company. Over the course of his life, Gaston had worked alongside two giants of this century, both considered saviors of the race, Booker T. Washington and Martin Luther King, Jr. Bracketed between these two men of national and world renown, A.G. Gaston played his part on a smaller stage, in the Birmingham he loved and refused to abandon. He often shared that stage with the more brilliant lights passing through, but his legacy, to all who knew and knew of him, offered just as powerful a message as those spelled out by Washington and King. Uncle Arthur had always been a presence in my life. He married my mother's sister Minnie before I was born. I'm told that when Minnie Gardner married Arthur George Gaston, it was considered a melding of royal dynasties. While my uncle had begun to make his way in the world, the Gardners, a farming family from Montgomery, were considered some of the most beautiful people in Alabama. Thanks to a thoroughly shaken racial cocktail, the girls were, as they would say in the South, beauty queens. The boys, handsome devils. Thusly united, my cousins and I grew up in a huge, privileged Alabama family. Huge because there were so many of us Gardners, 30 siblings and spouses, 45 first cousins, and so on. Privileged because we were the nieces and nephews of A.G. and Minnie Gaston. Minnie, one of the oldest of the 15 Gardner children, had helped raise my mother Elizabeth when their parents were no longer able. She lived with the Gastons off and on while she was in school, forming a bond with them that might not have been otherwise possible given the practical considerations of being one of 15 siblings. It was Aunt Minnie, childless in her marriage to A.G., who later chose my name, the name she had been saving for her own unborn daughter. By the time I was 7, I had moved to New York City with my parents, but the day school closed for the summer, I could be found on a plane headed south, a tag on my dress indicating who would pick me up, the Gastons.